The gloves landed on the tablecloth before the threat did, and the candle beside them tipped over and rolled off the edge. My brother-in-law, Derek, married to my sister for exactly 1 day, leaned across the table close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath. He told me he would snap my leg like a twig, loud enough that the string quartet actually stopped mid-song. My daughter Maya, 7 years old and still in her flower girl dress, went completely still in that way kids do right before the tears start. Somewhere behind us, a camera light blinked red, catching all of it. I am 34 years old, and that was the first time in my entire life that my family was actually about to see me instead of just looking past me. My sister Kayla, the bride, did not move to stop her new husband. She just crossed her arms and watched, waiting to see which side she would need to land on when the dust settled. That silence told me more about the last 3 decades than anything Derek said with his gloves on the table. To understand how we got to that barn venue with the string lights, you have to go back to a kitchen in Ohio where Kayla and I grew up learning 2 very different lessons about what earned love in our house. She got a trophy for one dance recital, and our mother framed the photograph. I got top marks in an entire language program, and the certificate went into a junk drawer. I am not telling you this because I am bitter. I am telling you because it happened, and I have had years to make peace with the math of it. Our mother, Diane, was not a cruel woman, just the kind who mistook noise for accomplishment. If it could be posted online, it counted. If it could not, it might as well not have existed. When I enlisted at 19, my family had already written 2 stories, one for Kayla and one for me, and neither had room left for revision. Kayla was always going places, she liked to say so herself at holiday dinners while topping off her wine. I was just in the army, said the way you would describe someone working a shift job, nothing worth asking follow-up questions about. Here is what nobody in my family ever bothered to ask about. By 26, I was leading signals analysis for a joint task force. By 28, I held a clearance most people never hear about, attached to a special operations detachment as the intelligence officer responsible for the packages that got soldiers home alive. I have a commendation with a Valor device sitting in a drawer at home, never framed, because I never once believed anyone at our dinner table would understand what it cost to earn it. Meanwhile, Kayla built a real estate career around being photogenic at open houses, and I do not say that to mock her. Plenty of people build good lives that way. But in our house, life got measured in likes and referrals, in how loud my mother could brag at church. When Kayla closed a big listing, my mother posted about it that same night. When I made a promotion board 2 years ahead of schedule, a genuinely rare thing in my field, I mentioned it once at Thanksgiving and my mother asked Kayla to pass the rolls. The only person who ever asked me a real question was my grandmother, Ruth, 83 years old and sharper than anyone gave her credit for. Her own husband had served, and she said something in me reminded her of him. Not the uniform, but the quiet. You carry things you never set down, she told me once, and I see it in you. She never needed me to explain the job. She just made room for the fact that it existed, and you would be amazed how rare that kind of room is when you spend your whole life fighting for a seat at the table. Somewhere around my 7th deployment, I stopped trying to explain anything to anyone. It was not bitterness exactly, more like the moment you quit knocking on a door once you have counted how many times it never opened. I built an entire life that had nothing to do with their approval, a marriage, a daughter who thought I hung the moon, a small circle of people who trusted me with their lives, because I had already trusted them with mine. The ledger stayed shut in a drawer, and I told myself I did not need it opened. Then Kayla got engaged to Derek and the wedding machine started grinding and my mother started talking about how family needed to show up, smile, and stay small. I RSVP'd. I brought Maya. I even packed my dress uniform in the trunk, tucked behind the suitcases, for reasons I had not fully admitted to myself yet. At the rehearsal dinner, Derek's family had flown in, including his godfather, a retired officer named Colonel Hale, seated near the head table because Derek specifically wanted him there. Derek had spent the whole evening needling me about my job, the way people do when they have already decided not to believe the answer. When I told him I was an intelligence officer, he actually laughed and mentioned some buddy of a buddy who was real special forces, as if whatever I did not count as real. I let it go, the way I have let 1,000 versions of that comment go. Then Kayla made a joke about how the army never fixed my quiet streak, and the table laughed harder than the joke deserved. Derek, several drinks deep, decided to turn it into a show for Colonel Hale, grabbing the gloves out of his bag and slamming them down like it meant something. That is when he told me he would break my leg in half, and the joke was gone from his voice completely. He said it with my 7-year-old standing close enough to hear every word. My mother reached for her wine glass instead of reaching for her daughter, and I felt years of silence settle into something with actual weight behind it. I want you to understand that what happened next was not improvised. 11 years in intelligence work does not leave room for winging it when the outcome actually matters. Months earlier, quietly, I had already decided that if my family was ever going to see who I really was, it would happen on their terms of proof, not mine, because people like my mother do not believe words, they believe footage and a uniform standing up in front of witnesses. When I saw Colonel Hale's name on the guest list, I recognized it immediately from a joint training exercise years back, and I reached out to him myself 2 weeks before the wedding, one colleague to another, nothing dramatic. Just letting him know I would be there. I packed my award case and my orders paperwork in the car, not to wear at dinner, because that would have been theater, but because you never walk into a reckoning unprepared. And I let the videographer keep filming because I understood something my family never had, that a camera does not lie and does not forget, and does not care whose feelings get bruised by the truth it catches. So when Derek slammed those gloves down with that red light blinking steady across the room, I did not reach for anything except my phone, calm as anything, and looked straight at Colonel Hale. "Sir," I said, "I believe we have a mutual friend from the Joint Task Force." His fork stopped halfway to his plate. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time all night, and said my name and rank out loud in front of the entire table. He remembered the after-action report from an extraction overseas, the intelligence package that called off a bad route and saved an entire element, and he told my mother flatly that her daughter had spent more time outside the wire than half the men he commanded in 26 years. The barn went silent in a way I do not think it had ever been silent before. My mother said she did not understand, that I did paperwork, and Colonel Hale told her plainly that her daughter held a Valor Award and that her new son-in-law had just threatened to break that daughter's leg in front of a 7-year-old. Derek's swagger drained out of him completely, and I told him he could keep talking about breaking legs, or he could put the gloves away. He put them away, and his father apologized on his behalf, mortified. Kayla found me in the parking lot afterward, mascara running, asking why I never told them. I told her I had for about 15 years, and nobody ever asked a follow-up question. I was not cruel about it. I was just tired, the kind of tired that comes from finally setting down something heavy you forgot you had been carrying. The wedding happened the next day anyway, because weddings do, and I wore my uniform this time, not for show, but because Maya asked me to, and because I wanted my grandmother to watch me stand in it after 30 years of being overlooked. She cried before I even reached my seat. It has been 8 months since that dinner. I made lieutenant colonel this spring, 2 years ahead of schedule, and this time the room understood exactly what the pin meant. My mother still does not fully understand my job, but she asks real questions now, and I answer what I can. I am not auditioning for anyone's approval anymore, and I have learned that recognition does not need to come wrapped in reconciliation to still mean something. Some ledgers do not get settled, they just finally get closed.